Hello and welcome to Daily Politics, reaching you from Trust TV here in Abuja. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. I am Suleiman. Today, we are bringing you a third in our series of search for solutions to the insecurity problems in northern Nigeria. As we said last week, we go wherever the search for solution takes us. The issue of insecurity in the region has been raging for a long time now. Thousands of lives have been lost, and thousands more have been displaced. Property worth billions have been destroyed, while millions of citizens can no longer sleep with their two eyes closed. Blames and counter-blames have been traded between various parties and various actors. But on this program, and on this series particularly, we're not after blames. We're after the solutions, lasting solutions. We seek an end to the killings, the abductions, and the rapes, and the displacement of people from their homes and communities throughout northern Nigeria. At Trust TV and at Daily Politics, we will follow the trail of news and information that will lead us to bring you voices of people we think can help in resolving this conflict. Because all that matters is a permanent solution to this long and drawn-out issue. I have with me one of such persons, Dr. Murtala Ahmed Rufai, who is an historian with the Center for Peace Studies at Usman Danfodio University, Sokoto. And he's also the author of the book, I Am a Bandit. Currently, Dr. Rufai is with the Center for Democracy and Development as a senior research fellow. But also joining me through Skype is Mr. Salahuddin Hashim. He is Program Manager, Defense and Security with CISLAC. He's been a development practitioner for more than 10 years and, of course, a public affairs analyst as well. Welcome to Daily Politics, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Salahuddin. Can you hear us?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm with you.
Thank you. But before we proceed, we'll take just a minute break, and then when we return, we'll delve into the issues proper. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Daily Politics, and now we're discussing the solutions to insecurity problems in northern Nigeria, and we continue. Dr. Murtala Ahmed, there are few people who have engaged, the northwestern flank of the security crisis in northern Nigeria as much as you have in recent years. You've even written a widely cited book, I Am a Bandit, about it. But even before we get into these issues, I understand that you were at a meeting earlier today where the Sultan and other leading emirs of northern Nigeria were also in search of solution. What was that meeting about, and to what extent do you think such meetings can help, in bringing about an end to this crisis?
Thank you very much. I think the idea of having that particular meeting, it is actually a giant step in the right direction, because I wouldn't want to say this is the first time. There were several attempts in the past to identify some of these issues, to come out with solution to the problem of rural banditry and the rural insecurity in the Northwest. But this is a time where we see all the relevant and critical stakeholders related to peace and conflicts are actually brought on board. And issues were not, the issues discussed were basically and fundamentally not issues that revolves around apportioning blames.
Interesting.
Or identifying the root causes of the problem. Basically, issues discussed during this interaction or summit are issues towards identifying ways to address the problem of insecurity specifically identifying the ways and means in which we will get out of this problem.
Okay.
And I'm very much happy and confident that the caliber of people that were brought on board and the level of exhaustive discussions we collectively had about the issue, the outcome will definitely be positive and it will be good for northern Nigeria.
Thank you very much. But some people would say that you cannot identify solutions without first identifying the root causes of a problem. You know, you can't go straight to medication or treatment without a proper diagnosis. And you said that this meeting was not much concerned about knowing. Why is that? Is there a strategic reason behind that? Or?
Well, I think what I'm saying in essence is that these are problems that are basically and fundamentally known within the context of the remote and the immediate factors or causes of these conflicts. Every right-thinking Nigerian or northerner will tell you what the root causes are within the context of what? The operations and the activities of the vigilante group. The emergence and the proliferations of the Insecurity, for instance, and their activities. The issue of grazing routes and the grazing reserve, for instance, and a lot more. So what I'm saying in a sense is that it is really not enough for us to start talking about the problem at the moment, because most of these problems are known, are clearly identified. The factors and actors involved are known, for instance. So it is high time we talk about the solution.
The solutions, thank you. We too on this program, that's what we are looking for. Mr. Salahuddin, we've been here before. Some people would say that, okay, in the Northeast, we've been, here before in search of solutions. We've had high-powered meetings involving traditional rulers and community leaders and all stakeholders before. But most of these meetings end as soon as the guests are dispersed. What hope do you have that meetings such as the one that held today, can lead to anywhere?
Thank you very much. I think, first of all, we must move a little more slightly from the boardroom to communities where excruciating pains are being experienced on a daily basis as a result of the consequences of these actions. And I like from the entry point where Dr. Rufai came in to say that, look, what we need to do now is to focus more on solution. But of course, we cannot clearly have a vision of where we are going without really understanding where we are or where we are coming from. Education is seriously threatened in the north, as it were. And already we have 10.5 million out-of-school children that are currently suffering the consequences of that. And that is actually an army that is waiting to be recruited. So if meetings like that are happening, one of the immediate action plan that I think should happen are the soft responses. What are the soft approach, the low-hanging fruits? What are we doing in the immediate to be able to provide some preventive elements against what is going on? We are not seeing deliberate action that is being invested in education. That is one of the fundamental things that requires an urgent action. In fact, there should be an emergency in the educational system in the north. Even despite the fact that the region is backward in terms of access and enrollment, we have a problem also of withdrawal now as a result of the activities of criminal elements. Just in 2021, 800 children in different various attacks were kidnapped in various schools. And of course, 800 million were paid in ransom. And we have seen massive withdrawal of children from schools in the region. So yes, it is good to have meetings like this, but as a way forward, what are the short, medium, and long-term plan? And the short-term plan should be how the state government in the north can begin to invest strongly in education infrastructure to be able to begin to work on the mindset of these people. There is one big danger that is currently happening now, and that is the essence that suggests that Children are beginning to see men wielding gun as models. If we do not rescue that trend, I am afraid that it is really going to present to us a bigger situation in the nearest future. But I think we need to rescue the situation as it were.
Thank you very much. So we're talking about solution at a time when children who are not in school are already thinking probably wielding guns like the people around them that they see is important. But even before that, just yesterday, lots of people were killed across many states by the same bandits in Niger, in Katsina, and Kaduna, and many other states. So to what extent are we involving the actual actors in this solution searching? You're looking for solution in Abuja, where these people are dying in Niger, in Katsina, in Zamfara, in the very places where these events are happening. How do you...
I don't think we are looking for solution in Abuja.
Okay.
Because all the relevant actors, for instance, traditional authorities that were on board were actually people from different parts of northern Nigeria. And they are highly placed and highly respected people. They are representing people. And they came in for the sake of people. And talking about the problem, for instance, we've had more than enough about the problem. These problems are known. The increasing number of out-of-school children in the north, it is something that is ongoing. But then, how do we now address this issue of out-of-school children in the midst of existing crisis?
Yes.
We really need to dose down this tension. We really need to come out with short-term and long-term plan on how to address some of these issues.
So during the meeting, did you discuss what some of these short-term solutions might look like during the meeting?
Well, you see, I am not mandated to say anything about the meeting.
Okay.
Because I am not really in any way the mouthpiece of the organizers and also the meeting, and that is why I don't want to say much about it.
And it's
because it is a closed door meeting.
Okay.
But I feel what was discussed and the caliber of people that were there at the point of the discussion, I think something positive will soon come out. And I believe very soon we are actually going to be happy with the outcome of the discussion. And I don't want to preempt what will come out, but I believe and I feel, something good will soon come out.
Thank you. So let's go beyond the meeting itself to the wider issues around banditry in the Northwest. One of the issues that immediately presents itself is the declaration of bandits as terrorists, recently, which in a way has sort of maybe complicated the issue, or maybe strengthened the search for a solution to an end, a military end to it. Do you believe that a military end is in sight anytime soon?
In my own personal and candid opinion, we went ahead to declare these people as terrorists. The people that we don't know. They operate in a different world than ours. They have their own workings, strategy, tactics, organization, and also principles that we don't really know. And we just went ahead to declare them as what? As terrorists, without understanding who is even a bandit and who is not. By extension, if we take the idea of saying whoever bears AK-47 or AK-49 or arm, for instance, is a bandit in the forest of Niger, in the forest of Zamfara, in the forest of Katsina, we are absolutely getting it wrong. There are quite a number of pastoral communities who are fundamentally and basically good people, who are Fulani, and they stood by Fulani culture.
How do you mean good people?
I mean good people. I'm going there.
Okay.
What I mean by fundamentally good people, innocent people that are not in any way criminals, and they are also far away from terrorists.
Okay.
They bear arms for the simple reason of self-protection and the protection of their animals.
Okay.
If they should do away with the AK-47 they move around with, within a twinkle of an eye, they will be killed by these bandits. Their life,
regardless of the fact that they too are Fulani?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they are basically and fundamentally, just like I said, good people, because you see a whole family, for you to survive in the bandits' den, for instance, you must actually have a weapon. And today, by extension and by the Nigerian classification and definition, whoever bears arm and live in that particular area is considered as a terrorist. That is one. Okay. There are quite a number of people again who are non-Fulani and doesn't in any way bear AK-47, but they are forced to live under the bandit regime.
Okay.
They are also, by extension, defined and declared as terrorists. So in my own personal and candid opinion, that nomenclature, the use of the word terrorist, is a blanket judgment and is not in any way fair or just to some of these innocent, good citizens who are Fulani, who are into pastoralism. And they have to do that because they are not used to urban life. Their lives solely and wholly relies in the forest. They move around with their cattle, for instance. The question is, what will they do? Do away with the cattle, embrace urban life? They say no to it. What do? Are they going to take their arms, their ammunitions, and stay in the midst of these bandits? Because by any chance, if they decide to do away with the weapons today, there will be no more tomorrow. And that is a basic and fundamental problem. And that is why, in my opinion, last one, the major issue confronting Nigeria today and the issue of banditry is identifying who is actually a bandit and who is not, within the context of profiling different layers, different categories of these people that we today declare as terrorists.
Thank you. I will certainly be asking you the further question that is begging itself to be asked, which is who then is a bandit? We'll come to that. But let me bring Mr. Salahuddin to the discussion. Mr. Salahuddin, you are very familiar with the situation in the Northeast, where a military campaign against insurgency has been going on for over a decade. You know, based on your experience, to what extent do you think that a military campaign in the Northwest is likely to lead to, is near the kind of end that Nigerians expect or even indeed pray for as we speak?
It is going to be berserk. It is going to be counterproductive. It is nowhere using kinetic approach as a counterinsurgency. Yes, you need to have a mixed breed of approach. You need to have a hybrid in terms of the way you respond to the issue. But most importantly is the fact that even in the face of these uncertainties, government must actually consider peace-building alternatives to salvage the region from continued ruin. And I've said this very clearly because you cannot continue to roll out tanks and use marksmanship as the very best way to bring peace and solution. You don't go to the peace table wielding a weapon. You must also go with some carrot and stick method that can also suggest that you're also willing to provide some immediate path. And one of the pathway to recovery, as it were, for me would be for us to deal with the root causes of the issues. What are the push and the pull factors? Those things are still there. If we continue to respond in a military way and continue to apply tanks and weapons and also using all of these kinetic systems, yes, what we will just continue to do is to subdue a group of individuals. it were. But most importantly, is for us to use non-kinetic approach as a first
but
strategy.
Mr. Salahuddin, to the people who have been victims, for example, to the hundreds of people killed in Anka, Zamfara State a few weeks ago, or to those who were killed yesterday, and so on. If someone is telling them that a military solution is not the way out, how do you think they are going to take it? Let alone many other Nigerians who read about these horrors on a daily basis.
It has to be a hybrid. It has to be a mix of both military. It has to be a mix of both kinetic and non-kinetic approach. Because the idea is that if you invest more in kinetic approach, you will build a gorilla at the end of another decade. And that in itself is actually dangerous. And there is also the risk of arms transfer that is going on. You realize that some of the strategies that are also been adopted is also to attack military bases, attack police stations, to also continue to build up an armory. That is on the one side. The second thing is actually the proliferation of small arms and light weapons. And of course, we also heard when Sheikh Gumi told us that there are over 100,000 AK-47 and AK-49 weapons in the Northwest alone. And of course, there is a study that also suggested that there are 8 million small arms in West Africa, that 70% of that number is in Nigeria, and that 80% of that number is in the hands of armed opposition group. We cannot respond with sentiment and emotions. We must find solutions that are sustainable, that are enduring. These guys are already well armed. As a result, as a matter of fact, some of the information that is also playing out in different approach, where that the president had cancelled his trip to Zamfara because of the surface-to-air weapon that these guys also have. So, which means that there is also a big threat, that is imminent. And to get us to the point where we can begin to de-escalate this issue, security is local. And if security is local, we must find local solutions to these issues. All strategies of conflict merchants that goes on in different quarters must actually take a new dimension. There are lots of people who smile to the bank on a daily basis. Look, I have gone through the thick and thin and the breadth and length of conflict and most affected area. Conflict hotbeds and the communities there. As a matter of fact, if you recall that government in itself has said that they want to, as part of their own counter-insurgency strategy, that they have this Operation Safe Corridor program, that they have actually processed a number of communities are not agreeing. They are waiting for these guys to come out from that camp and they can lynch them. And I told people that
thank you very much. One important issue you mentioned is that there are some people who are smiling to the bank while this crisis festers. We're certainly going to look deeper into that because it's, the economics of conflict is one of the major drivers of, perpetuating conflict. So we'll be discussing that, and we'll be right back with you. But Dr. Mutila, this issue of the identity of a bandit, who is actually a bandit, because for most people in the media or in the public domain, the understanding of bandits that they have is a Fulani person or a herder, or something like that. So in what way are these generalized public understandings of who a bandit is, in what way do you think, as someone who knows intimately on these issues, in what way do you think they are wrong?
Well, the idea of banditry as it is today, it is a criminal venture that cut across different ethnic groups.
Okay.
I don't think there is a single ethnic group in Nigeria that is not duly and adequately represented in the bandit world.
That's a statement that will, that's profound.
The Fulani people are no doubt in it. Hausa people are part of it.
Okay.
Kanuri are also part of it. Igbo people are part of it. You go to Niger, you find Bari, Bagi, Nupi, and the rest of them all either directly or indirectly participating and also benefiting from the idea of banditry. So within the context of classification, we have within the bandit cycle, those we call the bandits. There are people that identify themselves as freedom fighters.
Okay.
There are people that are basically associated with what? With the idea of a reprisal attack coming from, or attacks and the counter-attacks coming from either the vigilante group or the Insecurity. And these are people that basically, if not for reprisal, they don't go out. They have their weapons. They have their AK-47 and AK-49.
So those ones, do they engage in abductions and kidnappings?
They don't in any way. There are lots of camps, a lot of camps in the Northwest in which kidnapping and abduction is a crime. And it's a punishable.
Within the ranks of the people in those camps.
It is a crime, and it is basically and fundamentally a punishable crime. There are lots of them like that. There are also camps in which the idea of going out for reprisal is also a crime. They don't go on reprisal, for instance. There are also those that are basically out for mass killing, destruction of lives and the properties. And these are people that I feel and I consider as the bandits.
Interesting.
So within the context of those that have the idea of what? The idea of freedom fighters, they feel they were suppressed. They feel they were depressed. They feel authorities
suppressed by whom and from what, against what?
Yeah, the issue of being suppressed now is by the local authorities, one, by the politicians too, and also by other groups. For instance, there are basically and fundamentally within those people we call the freedom fighters that move out to kill members of Magban, members of Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association, for instance. And of course, one will ask question, why must these people we call Fulani, after those that are running the affairs of their own organization, they have their own grievances against them, and they have reasons for doing that, for instance. There are also people within the bandit setting that are expert in kidnapping and abduction. And within the context, again, of this kidnapping and abduction, there are layers of people playing, each and every person playing his own role. The person that does the kidnapping, for instance, is not the one to do the negotiation. The person responsible for the negotiation is not the one to collect the money. And the person that collects the money, for instance, is not likely going to be the person that will benefit from the money. So it is a chain. A chain of what? A chain of crime and a chain of criminality. And it is only when we sit down and identify these layers, this chain, and how the whole chain and the layers work together, for instance, how they coordinate their affairs and how they go ahead in carrying out their evil deeds and their evil acts. That is actually a major step towards solving the problem. So the fact remains that we don't just pass an open or a blind judgment about whoever is in so area or by ethnic group. If you talk about the ethnicity of this conflict or ethnicization of banditry, for instance, where do you place the role and the position of the Igbo merchants involve and engage in supplying of arms, small arms, and the like?
Igbo merchants supplying arms to bandits, in the
that's
Northwest.
One. And also, where do you place the position of Igbo drug barons, for instance, supplying soft and hard drugs to these bandits?
But why are these things not known before now? Why are people? Why is only herders, Fulani bandits? Why are only these levels out there in the public that people don't know this underlying issues you are discussing? Because for most people, they can't imagine that these groups that you are mentioning supplying arms or supplying drugs to the Igbo. For most people, they would think it's even fictional.
It's not fictional because I have been to some of these areas, interact one-on-one with these bandits. I don't think there is any ethnic group in Nigeria. You see somebody bearing the name Uche. You talk about supplying drugs, they mention Uche. And I don't think also the bandits operating in those areas will decide to hide the identity of those supplying drugs. And also when it comes to the issue of supplying arms and ammunitions, you see them mentioning the names of different people. And by extension, you draw an analogy and conclude that, yeah, this is actually a particular ethnic group. And not only that, go to some of these rural areas, find out the number of patent medicine stores, who are operating, who owns them, who operates them, for instance, and what is the relationship. Not quite long, Kachala Turji killed somebody responsible for the supplying of drugs and also injecting the bandits with penta. Then the question now is the idea of bringing out issues like this, in my opinion, it is a problem that we don't know. We don't get close to these people to understand their problem. And it is only when you relate and interact with them that you understand this categorization, you understand this classification, and also you understand the role of what? Of each and every sect, or set, involved in this idea of banditry. And even within the context of their movements, if they are going out for attack, there are experts who are expert in riding motorbikes alone. That is what they do. There are sharpshooters in which, yeah, this is the role they play when it comes to the issue of attack. And not only that, you look at it within the context of there are also special units who are experts in an open space attack. And also there are experts that could go to every nook and cranny to execute a particular attack. The issue is we are not talking about the problem, but rather let us look at the solution.
Thank you very much. So I think on that note, we'll be taking a moment's break. When we return, we'll continue with our search for solution to the problems of insecurity in northern Nigeria. Stay with us.
From all around the world,
our news is factual and concise,
giving you fresh news as it breaks.
Nigerians in the diaspora have the
Now, one tricycle rider feared death.
Troops fighting Boko Haram and ISWAP.
Although the government has made repeated commitments to make the country attractive.
When I sit on the news desk every day,
there's a deep sense of responsibility that overwhelms me.
A responsibility to deliver a message to our viewers
in the most professional way possible.
Knowing that there's a lot of fake news flying around mainstream and social media daily,
we owe it to the public a responsibility to bring well-researched and responsible reportage to the table.
With Trust TV,
you're sure of a news and documentary channel you can trust.
Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and you can follow our discussion via all our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course, YouTube. We're discussing solutions to insecurity in northern Nigeria. And with me is Dr. Murtala Rufai and Mr. Salahuddin Hashim. Mr. Salahuddin, are you there?
Yes. Yeah, I'm with you.
Thank you. I'm sure you are. This is your area, but I was quite shocked and surprised by the complexities of the identities of those involved in this conflict that Dr. Murtala was describing. Do you think the economics of conflict that you mentioned earlier is what's responsible for involving this many people into the conflict, and to what extent does this sustain and perpetuate the conflict?
Yeah, I think it's about profiling, and like Dr. Rufai had clearly mentioned, how do we then sit down and do some kind of thorough analysis on this categorization? In my own work, I have found out some of these issues, yes. And like he said very clearly, those who collect the money are not likely those who even benefit from it. And those information he gave around the value chain of organized crime that goes around in this system, I tell you very clearly, if you catch any of the guys who run around on motorbikes and carry AK-47, and it tells you how much he gets over every single mission or after every ransom, he might tell you that he gets 5,000 naira. Okay, and that will shock you to say, look, how could you have gotten like a 5-10 million over a transaction and you are being paid 5,000 naira? And that is because that is just his work. But my point is that how does government step in at that point to be able to also securitize as a way of stabilization? Securitize to stabilize and also find some level of approach to govern the ungoverned spaces. My question would be that if there are social security programs that government is providing at local level, would this guy who is being paid 5,000 naira for wielding an AK-47 prefer to look over his shoulders and run and have a potential risk of being killed just for that amount, or that government also has some kind of plan, social safety net that he can also benefit from and earn that same amount and be confident and also be able to provide government with information that can help the system to be able to function more robustly. So I think the problem lies, one, with the inability of our system to govern ungoverned spaces. Two, we lack a clear-cut approach with the national security strategy on how to engage constructively. We have actually looked at the issue of kinetic system approach as the best solution, just looking at a more alternative system that is broad and robust.
There are arguments that one reason why the kinetic approach is privileged over and above all other mechanisms that can lead to solution two is because that's the approach that raises budgets. That's the approach where the money is. That if you incentivize insecurity, then obviously you're unlikely to have security because people will want to feed fat on the proceeds that come from the budgets. Do you think that argument is feasible?
Absolutely. It is actually the real reason. You have just nailed it. The issue of security budget is a paradox of plenty. The more money you put and budget for security, the higher the number of and the level of insecurity that you have. And it tells you very clearly there are also some kind of dishonest practice from the side of state actors in terms of response. And that clearly suggests to us the current question within the audit of the Nigerian police, where they said that over 88,000 assorted arms are missing from the police armory. 88,000, that is what
178,000 actually.
So it tells you very clearly that there are also state collusion in this entire system. And if you disaggregate that, it tells you very clearly that the only reason why we have continued to fund the embers of kinetic system is not because we are genuinely interested in the assaults. It is simply because it actually affords an open budget. Look, in the last 10 years, we have spent an average of 25% of our budget on defense and security. And it tells you that it means that in 10 years with that kind of money that we have not been able to record significant progress. Rather, we have seen new dimension to the conflict. We have seen new layers. We have seen there are more actors are now coming in. So it now becomes like an industrial scale kind of approach that is now confronting us. So we must actually find a way to discourage the existing practice of the kinetic system. And once people now see that there is no more, look, it is actually a failure of oversight. In developed climes, there are always a time-bound approach to any kind of theaters. And of course, the National Assembly would tell the executive, because they are co-managers of defense and security, and tell them that, look, we have 3 to 5 years. If you cannot prosecute this in 5 years,
let's
then
look
you
at
can just
let's look at other areas. Dr. Mutu, what about the actual victims of banditry? It is interesting, the identity of who is the bandit and the various classifications that you have about this. But what about the victims of this crisis? At least as reported in the newspapers, those who have their villages sacked, those who are kidnapped, those who from whom ransom is extorted all the time, those who are killed, you know, all the time, who live in communities that where these bandits operate. Where do you think their fate lie in this scenario, in the current situation?
Well, it's all about justice to all.
Okay.
These are victims grossly affected by the rate of kidnappings and abduction, rural insecurity in terms of attack and all that. But I feel what is important at the moment is considering the victims too. Considering them within the context of what? Within the context of identifying and also taking a stock of the victims. That is the first major assignment, in my opinion. Taking stock within the context of the loss and the level of impacts, the level of which this conflict has impacted on their lives. For those that have actually lost their life, it is something that virtually nothing will be done about it. But we are talking about solution to this problem. And while looking for solution, we really also need to consider the plight and also the situation and condition of these victims. They were touched, there is no doubt about it. And up till now, it is something that is ongoing. So what we need to do now is to come out with an idea of sincere and committed dialogue. A dialogue in which the two parties will be brought on board, sit with them, identify how to actually come out with a lasting solution to this problem.
How can dialogue be appealing to those who have lost their loved ones, those who have lost their farms, their livelihoods, their properties? Do you think dialogue can if you throw dialogue to them, do you think they're just going to grab it as a solution to this crisis?
Well, what I'm talking about dialogue within the context of ending the killings, putting an end to the incessant killings, for instance. Now, we talk about this dialogue within the context of, okay, how do we now address the problem immediately? It is when this is properly and adequately done, then you think of, okay, what do we do to the party involved? And within the context of the victims again, we have the perpetrators, victims, for instance, synergy or relationship. Within the context of the victims, we've also seen these people, the pastoral communities, being victims. So it's not just about, okay, the idea of, okay, farmers and the herders, the bandits, for instance, constituting the larger part of the bandits, for instance. No, it is a problem that is before us. What we are after now is how to address and how to stop the killing. Whatever will accompany that, let us put a stop to the existing conflicts. When that is properly and adequately done, in my opinion, then we think of how to address some of the long-term measures or policies or programs. But what we are seeing now,
ceasefire.
Yeah, the fire needs to go down significantly. And if we want the fire to go down or to quench the fire of banditry, we don't start thinking of who should be blamed or to apportion blames. It's how to end the conflict and also how to end the existing killings. Because nobody is comfortable and happy. No right-thinking Nigerian or Northerner is happy with the existing situation.
Absolutely.
So as long as we keep on talking about issues, long-term measures, address the issue of poverty, yeah, it is important. But what is far more important at the moment is how do we stop the killings?
In the first place. Thank you. But in that regard, Mrs. Laudin, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Thank you. So what role do you think local governance can play in this? You know, local government, state government. We know that in some instances they have even entered into certain kinds of arrangements with these bandits, some of which have largely failed because it has not abated the conflict or the killings, as Dr. Rufai said. So what role can the local authorities, you know, we said earlier that security is local. So what local measures can people or leaders and governance structures at that local level, what measures can they take to bring about an end to this?
I think the first thing that can happen is for us to build some peace infrastructure at local communities, for local government to first of all help with the issue of categorization and the characters of those who operate within a specific layout. Because look, security is also about intelligence. Security would definitely function based on credible information, and that is the essence where local infrastructures like local officials, the area commanders, the DP, they understand the landscape, they understand the demography, they understand. Unfortunately, even though some of them have gone into some parties, some of them have actually sold out some of their oath of office. But of course, we cannot just sit back and allow this to continue. So the first thing is to first of all come up clearly with categorization of those who operate in specific areas. Those kind of categorization help in terms of the kind of response that you want. There is no one size fits all kind of approach that you want to bring. Those who specialize in the aspect of looting food and going after farms and rustling cows seem to be a little bit less dangerous. How do we categorize and begin to build alliance? Now, that is actually very difficult. It is difficult because we have a law that says that you cannot interact with terrorists. And it means that with the current and recent statement and verdict by the president, it suggests that any form of interaction with these individuals is also a little bit a criminal offense, because you are now likely going to be discussing with an enemy of the state.
Yes,
but
with a terrorist.
You understand the categorization of these guys. Look at those whose efforts are less. And of course, I know recently when Turuji actually burnt down those travelers on the highway, including a pregnant woman, that his colleagues actually called him and said, look, you have gone far beyond what we believe or what we do, that this is actually now become, and that was when he wrote that letter. What exactly is in that letter? How have we also given experts an opportunity to analyze some preposition that he has actually indicated? There were 5 conditions that he actually outlined in that letter. What have we done in terms of
Dr. Yes, thank you, Mr. Hashim. Just 1 minute, because the technical people are saying that our time is up, so we have. But before we go finally, there's this question: if you have a conflict in which, you know, a major actor is invisible, you know, the bandits, they're not readily available the way in which local communities and their leaders, you can see them and group them. So how do people who want to pursue peace, how do they reach out to them? If you want ceasefire, you have to be able to reach out to those who are doing the firing in the first place. So how do you reach to them, particularly given this complex, classifications that you say that they have? How do you know that even if you talk to them today, they are going to, agree with what, actually stick to what they have, they promise, given what has happened in the past?
First of all, I don't in any way believe in the invisibility of these bandits.
Okay.
These are people that are known. They are where they have been, and they are still there. You go to Kagara, for instance, you find Kachala Turji is there. if not of recent, Shehu, Halilu, for instance, Shehu Rakeb and Halilu were in Sububu.
So their locations are known?
Not even their locations. Their locations are known, their nature of operations are known. There is virtually nothing that is not known about them. You go to local communities, they've reached a level in which they relate and interact with them on daily basis. Seeing Turji, seeing Halilu, seeing Rakeb and the rest of them, for instance, in the case of Zamfara, is not something new to the people that lives very close to them.
Interesting.
They are part and parcel of the community. And these were people born and brought up in their areas of operations. So for one to come and tell us that they are invisible, they are this, now they are where they are and they still remain there. On very few occasions you see them moving.
I'm afraid we have to stop you there, but hopefully we'll be inviting you not just again, but several more times as we stay on this issue of the search for solutions to insecurity in northern Nigeria. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
Murtala Rufai.
Thank you very much.
Thank you also, Mr. Salahuddin Hashim, for being with us all the way from Port Harcourt there. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, viewers, for staying with us. We hope that yet again tomorrow we'll be bringing you another edition of Daily Politics. Thank you for staying with us. My name is Suleiman Suleiman. Good night.